I meant to go back one verse, verse 5. It says, in Gibeon, Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God asked of him, ask what you wish me to give you. And then this is Solomon's reply. I'm sorry, I meant to start in verse 5. So picking up in verse 7, now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father, talking about himself. Yet I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. Your servant is in the midst of your people, which you have chosen, a great people who are too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? So basically, God appears to Solomon in a dream, and he asks him, whatever you want, ask of me. What do you think some people might ask for? Give me some examples.
Riches.
What is it?
Riches.
Riches.
Power.
Power. Fame. Whatever. But he asks discernment of heart. He asks for wisdom. He asks for, I've been put in this position, and I don't even know what I'm doing. I need help. So God, verse 10, it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. God said to him, because you have asked this thing, and you have not asked for yourself a long life, nor have asked for riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself discernment to understand justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before, nor shall one like you arise after you. I have also given you what you have not asked for, both riches and honor, so that there will not be any among the kings like you in all your days. If you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments as your father David walked, then I will prolong your days. Then Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream, and he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and made peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. But God was very pleased that he asked for wisdom instead of a long life. Or, think about, here we watch movies sometimes where we get the genie in the bottle, and I'll grant you wishes. What are things that people wish for? That's just common nature, that we would probably think of a long life or riches or some kind of earthly whatever. But he wanted wisdom. God was pleased with that, granted it his wisdom, but also gave the things that he didn't ask for. And we'll see that in his life on the riches that he had acquired.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
I think what stands out to me is the biggest word of all this that God's saying to him is the word if.
Yeah, if you do this, if you do that, right? And God still allowed him all the riches. He still had the wisdom and the stipulation there was long life. Who knows how long he would have lived if he would have obeyed God's commandments and kept his him at the forefront, right? Turn with me to chapter 4, verses 29 through 34. This talks about Solomon's power and wealth and wisdom. Starting in verse 29, now God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind like the sand that is on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the sons of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Israelite, Heman, Calco, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. and his fame was known in all the surrounding nations. He also spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees from the cedars that is from Lebanon, even to the hyssop that grows on the wall. He spoke of animals and birds and creeping things and fish. Men came from all peoples to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. So not only was he wise, but people, other leaders from all over the area, they would travel far to come to just listen to his wisdom. And it wasn't just, hey, this guy's just in one area. You know, he's not just really wise in finances. He's not just really wise in certain aspects of life. God granted him wisdom and understanding of everything. It says from the trees to the birds to the plants and everything. And people from all around came to listen to him and to gain some knowledge from him. Turn with me to 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 13. Now when the queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with difficult questions. So she came to Jerusalem with a very large retinue, with camels carrying spices and very much gold and precious stones. When she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. Solomon answered all of her questions. Nothing was hidden from the king which he did not explain to her. When the queen of Sheba perceived all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his servants, the attendance of his waiters, and their attire, the cupbearers, and his stairway by which he went up to the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. Then she said to the king, "It was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. Nevertheless, I did not believe these reports until I came and my eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told to me. You exceed in wisdom and prosperity the report which I heard. How blessed are your men, how blessed are these your servants who stand before you continually and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who delighted in you to set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, therefore he made you king, to do justice and righteousness." She gave the king 120 talents of gold and a very great amount of spices and precious stones. Never again did such abundance of spices come in as that which the queen of Sheba had given Solomon. Also the ships of Hiram, which brought gold from Ophir, brought in from Ophir a very great number of almug trees and precious stones. The king made of the almug trees supports for the house of the Lord and for the king's house, also lyres and harps for the singers. Such almug trees have not come in again, nor have they ever been seen to this day. King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba all her desire which she had requested, besides what he gave to her according to his royal bounty. Then she turned and went on her own land together with her servants. So you have the queen of Sheba, that she had heard about this King Solomon, about his riches and about his fame and about his wisdom. And she came bearing gifts just in case, but came to test him. And when she had seen, he answered all of her questions, saw how wise he was, saw how rich he was. The stories that she had heard wasn't even half of what it really was. And she saw it for her own eyes, and she was and she was very impressed with him and with Yahweh, and she gave him gifts. But this happened with multiple areas. You know, people would come from all over trying to gain some knowledge from Solomon and just be around him. You know, when you have really smart people that you want to learn from, you want to be around them. You want to gain a little bit of what they've got. And this is shown with Solomon, and his fame went all over the place. You know, everybody knew about him. Give me some more things about. All right, so we talked about his wisdom. Give me some more things that he is that Solomon was known for. Some good things. We'll talk about some bad things. Huh? Say it again.
Son of David.
Son of David. Riding on the coattails of King David. That's a hard thing to do. You know, there's been even in our culture today, you have a son of somebody. That son has a lot to live up to sometimes, you know, and it's hard to do that. And here, King Solomon noticed that, because he even told God, you know, I'm the son of King David. I don't even know what I'm doing. I need some help here. I need you to grant me the wisdom and discernment so I can do a good job. So it sounds like he was humble enough to know that he needed help, because being the son of David is, David, great, wonderful, great king, even though he has his downfalls also. He's human, but he was a great king, and Solomon was trying to follow in his footsteps. Did a spectacular job as far as the land and the riches and the building it up, but his downfall we'll talk about in just a few minutes. Give me something else about King Solomon. What did he do? Yes, ma'am?
Built the temple.
Built the temple. So here you had David. We talked about David wanting to build the temple, because why did David want to build the temple? One of the reasons. Why did David want to build a temple?
To honor God.
To honor God. Here he says, I live in this house, and God doesn't even have a dwelling. We don't have a worship place. We don't have he's in tents. Even though that's where we know God is spirit, he's not actually dwelling in a tent, but that was the mindset. Like, hey, I've got a house, and he's out there in a tent. So I want to build but he couldn't do it. Why couldn't David do it?
Man of war.
He was a man of war, man of blood. So he made the plans. He started gathering up all the supplies, and Solomon took it from there, and he built a grand temple. Gold, the finest. Lumber, the finest gold, the finest jewels, everything to make this wonderful temple for God, and a wonderful worship place. What else about King Solomon?
He was an author.
He was an author, right? So cultural, right? So not only was he the king, built the temple, gathered up all these riches. His fame was everywhere, his wisdom, but he put the wisdom on paper, or whatever they put it on back then. But he was an author. So what did he write
Proverbs.
that we know of? What is it?
Proverbs, Song of Solomon.
The Proverbs. So you have the Proverbs, which is a lot of wise sayings, and he put a lot of wise sayings in the book of Proverbs that we can still learn from today. How to treat one another, how to get along, and the right things to do, and then what else did you say?
Song of Solomon.
Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs. He wrote that. What else did he write? Ecclesiastes, right. And it appears that Ecclesiastes is definitely later in life. For some of the wrong things that Solomon did, where he spiraled out of control with some of his idolatry and godliness or godlessness. it never comes out and says that he repented, but Ecclesiastes is a good writing that shows his repentant heart, or at least, hey, in my old age, looking back, I should have done these things differently, and it's all vain, and all these riches that I've gathered up. It looks like a repentant heart. He's also cited for at least 2 Psalms in the book of Psalms. Psalm 72 and Psalms 127 are Psalms that Solomon had written. And it says in here that he wrote 1,005 Psalms. We don't have that in the book of Psalms collections, but it says that he wrote 1,005 Psalms. What else is he known for? How did he get all the riches?
Oh, peace, there was peace all around him.
Peace,
There was
right?
war.
He made alliances, made
Yeah.
peace. He also trade and diplomacy. He expanded the trade routes. He had fleets of ships. He had the chariot. I mean, he just grew and grew and grew. But a lot of it had to do with alliances that he had built with other countries through. How did he get those?
Marriages,
Through, a lot of them were through marriages. How many wives did he have?
700,
And how many concubines?
300.
1,000 in total, right? Which, in that time, in that area, 1 Kings 11, verse 3, it says he had 700 wives, 300 concubines, and he had wives through in Moab, Edom, Sidon, Heth, and Egypt.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
didn't he say, doesn't it say somewhere in there that he had, so many foreign wives?
Foreign wives, yeah. So, yeah, Moab, Eden, Sidon, yep. And what he would do, and it specifically says, like Pharaoh's daughter marries Pharaoh's daughter, makes a alliance with them as they were building the temple and all of that. And what that would do is also, the more alliances that you would form, the less other countries would want to come in and invade. Like, well, and so it made a lot of peace around there. But with that comes all of wherever the foreign wives were from, whatever idols they worship, whatever false gods they worship. Well, he would build worshiping places for them. He would even worship with them, and he got sucked into that kind of false god and idolatry and everything. And so the downfall of Solomon was just that. So what happened with Solomon that because of this? What was his, let's say, punishment that he never really saw, but what was his punishment from God? What does that mean?
Split the kingdom.
Split the kingdom, right? He's going to tear the kingdom from Solomon. And he says that he's not going to do it while he's still alive. It's going to be shown in his son, Rehoboam. Because of his many idols and false gods and him turning away. So just because you have wisdom, just because you know the right thing to do, does that mean you're always going to do it?
Didn't God warn him about the foreign wives? Not to make him.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah, yep,
So he was warned
Yeah.
previously
yep,
about what would happen,
yep,
and that they would turn his heart
yep.
from God.
Yeah, and just because you know the right thing to do or you're wise doesn't mean that you're always doing it. That was his downfall and his temptation was, and the power went to his head, and But we can see in Ecclesiastes that he did have he had a lot of regrets, things that he, and it even says that everything that he saw that he wanted to do, he partook. He didn't leave anything out. He did whatever he wanted to do instead of what God would have him do. So, anyways, that was pretty much Solomon's rise and fall. He became king. He started out really well, started out really humble, and wanted wisdom from God, which he gave it to him, along with all the riches and everything else, and everything caught up with him, and he had to spiral downhill, and that was his downfall. And then, so the next lesson, lesson 8, we're going to be getting into the divided kingdom, and then we'll start looking at some of the kings and everything there. 700 wives and 300 concubines. It never comes out and says it, but who would probably be his main wife out of all this? Anybody have an idea? No? Well, Rehoboam ends up on the throne, and generally speaking, you have your favorite, as we've seen through the rest of the Isaac and Jacob and all that. They tend to give him the favorite. So it might be Naamah is her name. She's an Ammonite princess, and that is the mother of Rehoboam. And then we also have another one that's mentioned as Pharaoh's daughter. But Rehoboam ends up on the throne. He inherits the throne. So Naamah might be the main Solomon's wife favorite, but we're not specifically told that. But Rehoboam ends up on the throne. So we'll get to that. Let's get to the questions and answers. Page 87 of the workbook. The third king of the United Kingdom was who? Solomon. The location of the battle against the Philistines in which Saul died. Yep, Mount Gilboa. The Philistine champion who was killed by David. Goliath. A phrase used to describe the character of David. Man after God's own heart. David's capital. Yep, Jerusalem. The first king of Israel was Saul. Saul's son and David's best friend was who? Jonathan. The man who anointed the first two kings, which was Saul and David. Samuel. Yep. A prophet of God who confronted David with his adultery. Nathan, right. And by the way, David also had a son named Nathan. And this prophet, by the way, I don't know that we touched on this, but Nathan was not just, a guy that shows up and tells David and then he's gone. We see Nathan before this and we see Nathan after this. He was almost a in-house consultant and in-house prophet for David that worked closely with David. And then later on we can see that he talks to Bathsheba also. And so he must have been very respected by David, especially for Nathan to be able to come to him and to the king and tell him, hey, you've messed up, and especially the way that he did, and David to be, yes, I have messed up. For him to approach the king that way, they were tight. And we see David had a son named Nathan, and he was probably named after him because even we do that today, right? We might name our child after somebody that we respect or want to show homage to. And so Just want to throw that in there because I don't think we talked about that before. The mother of Solomon,
Bathsheba,
Bathsheba. The second king of the United Kingdom,
David,
David. And what the Israelites wanted to rule them instead of a judge,
King.
king, right? All right. What firmly established Samuel as a prophet of the Lord in the eyes of the people? What happened with Samuel that kind of confirmed that he was a prophet?
God spoke to him.
God spoke to him in a dream or vision, right? Saul, number 2, Saul was supposed to kill Agag, the Amalekite king, but spared him instead. Who ended up killing Agag and how?
Samuel hacked to pieces.
That's right. Samuel, as Steve said, Samuel hacked him into pieces, right, with a sword. At number 3, at first Saul wanted David to use what to fight Goliath?
His own armor and weapons.
Right. Saul's armor and weapons. And why didn't he end up doing it that way?
They were way too big.
Right. Saul, if you remember, was really tall. David was, at the time, we think, might have been 15, 16, 17 years old, somewhere in that. And he put the armor on, and it was just way too big for him. And he was like, he said, I can't even hardly move, I'm not going to wear this stuff. Number 4, what happened to make Saul realize that David was going to be his successor to the throne?
People were chanting, Saul slayed 1,000, David slayed 10,000.
That's right. So it wasn't the fact that David killed Goliath, because he witnessed that, right? That wasn't it. But when they got to town and he heard the women chanting, Saul has slayed his thousands and David has slayed his 10,000s, he started to get a little bit worried and watching his back, right? That made Saul realize that David was going to be his successor to the throne. Number 5, Saul, David, and Solomon reigned how many years each? 40. Which makes a United Kingdom last for a total of 120 years. Multiple choice. David was the youngest of how many brothers?
8.
Say it again.
8.
8. You got it. Number 2, according to 1 Samuel 16:23, what instrument did David play for Saul?
Harp.
The harp, the lyre, that'd be A. Number 3, David cut off Goliath's head with
Goliath's sword.
Goliath's own sword. Here we go, Steve. When the women of Israel saying David has slain his 10,000s, how many people had he actually killed up into that point? Just one. Which book of the Bible did Solomon write?
Song of Solomon, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes.
You got it. All the above. Jesus was a direct descendant of who? David. David established what city as the capital? It says as his capital, but I changed it to the capital. It's not his.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. And people generally call it the city of David, right? Number one, for discussion, the Israelites told Samuel, "Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." By making this request, they rejected God as the real king, as their real king, and revealed that they wanted to be just like everyone else. When we today reject God in an effort to be popular, what do we reveal about ourselves?
We don't want God to be our Lord.
Right.
We want to be our own Lord.
Yep. And we all want to fit in, right? And there's a quote that Skip used to say, and I think he told me that Paul Dietzel, which used to be a LSU football coach years ago, a lot of times you'll hear coaches make speeches to their players trying to either get them pumped up or get them encouraged or trying to get them to, kind of encouragement. And he said this, he said, "Dare to be different, dare to stand alone, and who is this they in your lives?" And if we look at that, they were a different people. They needed to stand alone. They didn't need to be like everybody else. Who cares about what they are doing out here? And we need to take that same aspect and attitude in our lives. Is we don't need to conform to the world. Turn with me to, you don't have to turn. Romans 12 verse 2, it says, "Be not conformed to this world." Israel wanted a physical king. Why would they want a physical king? Why do you think they wanted a physical king? A couple of different
They
reasons.
wanted to be like the other nations.
They wanted to be like the other nations around them. But why else?
I guess because they wanted someone, they wanted someone to go out and come in before them, which means that a good leader who makes the decisions
Yeah.
and not this tribe or that tribe, one guy, then everybody,
Right.
that's the preeminent person.
Yeah, and I think one of the answers could be in the question: why would they want a physical king? Well, they looked around them and saw they worshiping idols their king, God, they can't see, and I think they wanted somebody they can physically see and have them lead them and them report to, even though God's done all these things, wonderful things for them. I mean, here we are in this area right here. But look at all that from the Egypt, parting the Red Sea, the plagues, parting the Red Sea, parting the Jordan, Jericho, Ai, all these miracles that they've witnessed with their own eyes. But yet they wanted somebody physical king, like Tracy said, to lead them, go out before them, come back before them, fight the battles with them that they could see, feel, touch, and hear. And then, like Steve said, they're looking around, and all the other countries have kings, and they wanted to be like them.
That would lead them to battle. They somehow didn't understand that God was already fighting their battles.
Right.
But they wanted, like I said, other countries, they saw kings leading them out to battle, and that's what they wanted. They wanted a king they could see, that they couldn't understand that God was already fighting the battle.
Well, it also could be the fact that you remember up until this point. Do you remember they went through years and years and years of that cycle? You remember the cycle of them repenting and doing good, and then doing bad, and then turning to idolatry, and then God sending a judge, and this cycle that they were on. And I don't know if they were thinking, well, if we had a king, maybe we wouldn't be in this disarray cycle. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they were tired of their own cycle that they were causing, and maybe they thought things would be different or better if they had one person leading them rather than having a judge come and straighten them out every time. Don't know exactly what their motive or mindset was really, but we do know that they did look at other nations and say, hey, we want a king like they have. And, and if they would have dared to be different, and they stood alone, and they didn't worry about the other they in your lives and concentrated on themselves and obeying God, then they could see that God was their king and in control the whole time. Anything else on that? Number 2, if David only needed one stone to kill Goliath, why did he take 5 with him? Was this a demonstration of lack of faith on David's part? Why or why not? We talked about this this past Wednesday night.
Famously, there were more than one giant.
Yep.
So it stands to reason if there's an army that traditionally, culturally, instead of making everybody fight to fight, well, let's just have our champion fight. And they might pick any one of those giants to come out and fight, or they might fight one giant at a time. Either way, it was common knowledge that there was more than one giant.
Right.
Even though it may not be common knowledge to us now, if we're not careful when we read the scriptures,
Right.
he knew there was more than one trash-talking giant that needed to be put straight and made an example of.
Right. Sure. And even if they weren't giants, they had a whole army of Philistines.
Yeah.
So even if he was to kill him and he was the only giant, there's other people there that he needed to take care of.
Yeah, if they didn't run away.
That's right. Which
He
they
was
did. Yes, ma'am.
It's clear that he did have faith,
Mhm.
because, why aren't you
That's
guys
right.
doing anything? This is an uncircumcised Philistine talking trash about our God.
Right.
What is the problem?
Right.
I'll do it if none of you will.
Right.
So we knew he had faith.
Right.
So it definitely wasn't a lack of faith.
Yeah, he
Lack
goes
of
down to
trust.
Goliath, and Goliath says, "What are you coming to me with a stick like I'm a dog?" And he said, "You're coming to me with spears and all this armor, and I'm just coming to you. I'm coming to you with God on my side. I've got nothing to fear. I'm coming out here with no armor on, and a staff and 5 rocks and a sling, but I've got God on my side." So he definitely had the faith. It's definitely not a lack of. This last question, was this a demonstration of lack of faith on David's part? Definitely not. I mean, he had the faith, and he had the belief in God that he would take care of it. So I just think it was preparedness. He was prepared for whatever he was confronted with. Number 3, when Saul was confronted with his sin, he said, "I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord." When David was confronted with his sin, he said, "I have sinned against the Lord." Do you see any difference between these two responses? What made David and not Saul a man after God's own heart is the second part of this question. So, do you see any differences between the two statements from Saul and David? Yes, ma'am.
Saul didn't take God personally. It wasn't personal to him. He didn't have a relationship with God. And we see David, who, it seems like his first thought is always God, See the example, just like we talked about. This is God, you guys. What's wrong with you?
Right.
So, but Saul didn't have that relationship. He didn't trust God.
Yeah.
He didn't see the things that God had done as a validation of who God was, like David did. Every time something good happened, David attributed it to God immediately, because
Right.
he knew who God was.
Right.
Saul didn't really know who God was.
Right. It's almost like yeah, I've heard the phrase in today's time, "Are you sorry, or are you sorry you got caught?" That kind of thing, and that's kind of what I attribute this to is, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment. And then David's is, I have sinned against the Lord. And, you know, we saw that before with how can I do this thing against God? When we're talking about Joseph, you know, and Potiphar's wife, he's like, I can't, you know, I can't sin against God. That's a mindset that they have. But yeah, was he sorry, or was he sorry that he got caught? I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord. So what is the in those two responses, what made David and not Saul a man after God's own heart?
David was repentant.
Right. Truly repentant, right? Was Saul not repentant? I mean, he says that I have sinned and for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord. Was he not sorry for what he did? Turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 30. And we talked about this when we were studying this part, but it says, and Saul said, then he said, I have sinned. And then immediately it goes into, but please honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel, and go back with me that I may worship the Lord your God. He's really worried about the way it looks for him. He's really worried about the appearance of he's not. And if you look at David, when David's sorry, I mean, here you have the king of Israel. He writes about his sorrow. He writes the Psalms. He goes into deep mourning. Everybody can see it, and generally you don't see the vulnerable side of a king like that. And he let it all out because he didn't care, because he knew he did wrong and he was sorry. But yet Saul is wanting to be kind of sweep it under the rug and let me go about my life and just, hey, please honor me because this looks bad on me. Two totally different ways of accepting it and dealing with it. Yes, sir.
If you look at, I forgot what song it is, 51 or somewhere right there, where David in his heart has godly sorrow for what happened with Bathsheba, right? That's
Yeah,
the
that's-
difference between David and Saul. Saul might have been sorry, I'm sorry I got caught maybe. He didn't have true godly sorrow in his heart.
Yeah, that's it. There's a few of them, but Psalm 51 is we don't have time to read it right now, but go and read Psalm 51, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. He put it in a psalm about sorrow for his sin and a plea for forgiveness. You have the king of Israel, but then you have Saul that's, hey, I'm sorry for what I did, but please honor me and bring me back up here and let me go work like nothing ever happened. And how does this look for me? And there's a huge difference in.
Don't make it look bad for the people.
That's right. That's right. And that is that's one of the big differences. And truly being sorry is a man after God's own heart, like my dad said. And also, if Psalm 51, for sure read that one, but Psalm 32, he was asking for cleansing in that psalm. Same thing with Psalm 38. And there was a Psalm 130 expressing sorrow for sin and hope in God's forgiveness. So he had multiple psalms that he wrote, pouring his heart out that he was sorry for what he did. And even though he was sorry for what he did, even though God forgave him, he still was left with the, he still had problems from then on with, because of this sin that he had to deal with throughout his life. But he was genuinely sorry for what he did. And read Psalm 51 when you get a minute. I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. I had it as a note, but when I'm standing up here, I skip over some things that I want to say and don't say. So appreciate you bringing that up. So, anyways, we're about out of time. Yes, sir, Dad.
Going back to the people clamoring for a king, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Samuel warned them, if they get a king, they're gonna draft their men into
Yep.
service, they're gonna tax them. I think that's right, is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right, that's right. We talked about that, and he warned him ahead of time, and God even told him, you go ahead and warn him. And Samuel was against it from the beginning, and didn't want that to happen. So there's I think a half a chapter of him going through saying, hey, he's gonna take your women, he's gonna take your children, the king, dealing with the king is not just all, but he's gonna take a portion of what you have and take a portion of your land. He's gonna take your oxen and your sheep and all this stuff. And they still wanted it, so he said, okay, give them what you want, So, appreciate your attention and your comments this morning. And we'll start lesson 8 on